Latter-day Profiles. We're here in Independence, Missouri, and joining me today is Jonathan Cutler. Jonathan, welcome.
Welcome. Thank you, sir. Appreciate
Pleasure to
it.
have you. Official title, Chief Operations Officer at the Storage Acquisition Group. We'll talk more about that. Owner of Cutler Enterprises. And we'll talk a lot about you're involved in so many volunteer groups, have been for such a long time. We want to talk about that as well. But give us a little background about yourself. Where are you from?
Do you know what? Grew up in Bozeman, Montana, and that was back in the 80s. And then my dad, he actually was a institute director there, and he got transferred back here to Independence. So we're just a few steps away from where my dad worked. And I grew up in Liberty, Missouri, where the historical Liberty Jail is. And so my foundational youth and everything was right here in the vineyard, and so we had lots of opportunities to work up at Adam-on-the-Amen and be heavily involved in clearing that land in far west. And so it's fun to realize that many years ago I was involved in cleaning that up with service projects and different things. But so all of my family is out in Idaho and Rexburg and Newdale and those different areas, and so that's a little bit about me. So,
yeah. What was it like, when we're, studying the Doctrine and Covenants, church history, we read about those things, but you were living it out here. What was it like? Did you have the realization that these were kind of pretty cool places?
Well, that's a great question. I get that asked quite a bit because I've had lots of people that have come here to this area, and with my dad being such a church historian, I've been on every tour. I know kind of every little detail, every little pebble and stone, and what happened here at all these different events. And so for me, it really is categorically one of the greatest knowledge bases that you can have, is to have a father that loved the church so much and church history, and was in a position that he taught all of his 6 boys and 1 girl, and so we understand church history exceptionally well, and there's just a lot of goodness that you can actually learn from what the saints went through. I was just recently reading a book called Liberty, and it's amazing when you start, even though it's nonfiction, but it has some factual details to it, but it's it really talks about the internal struggles, and it really goes through a lot of those things. And so I think when you actually look at growing up here as a youth and seeing those struggles, it wasn't easy being a member of the church here. We were very much the few, and and certainly in the Bible Belt, you recognize very quickly that you were a very distinct people. So
probably one of the things that kept you strong growing up. You're a wrestler. How was that? How'd you get involved with that?
Do you know what? I started out in Bozeman. I actually, our next door neighbor, he actually was the USA coach for the USA team, and so he took me at 5, and he had a son who was the same age, and we had a kids wrestling program, and so just learned real quickly that it's something that I enjoyed doing, and I could take out any energy or anything that was kind of involved with that. I was born with a cleft palate. And so with that cleft palate, I've had 17 surgeries, 18 now. But that was one of those things where people were certainly wanted to make fun and poke fun and different things. And so, my neighbor just said, "Hey, John, why don't you go ahead and just come over here and you can take all that out and in wrestling, and it's all legal here. So we can you can take all that stuff out." But it was just a great lesson to really understand how to channel your energies, channel, frustration. And, it's certainly, I don't want to call it bullying, because it was, at that point, that's not what it was. It was just, people trying to, get noticed.
Yeah. How did that, kind of shape who you are a little bit? Because that's a lot of surgeries, probably fairly painful to go through all that.
Yeah, I certainly have flashbacks. I have lots of memories of, you've got to wear stents. You've got to kind of do different things. You can't ever touch your face. Wow. Right there in Salt Lake. So we lived in Bozeman, and so Mom and Dad would take me down to Salt Lake for all of my surgeries there, and anyway, I just remember being there for at least a week, and I had a guard that went over my lip. I just had full reconstructive and kind of brought the palate together and got everything squared away, and walked out of the hospital, and one of my brothers pushed me. And if you recall the old hospital there, Children's Mercy, it would actually, I fell down the stairs. So I went forward. Oh, no. And so all of this surgery and all these things that had just happened, it just broke everything open. So I had to go back and go through that again. So anyway.
Yeah,
I still don't know to this day what brother it was, but one of them, there's with 6 boys and 1 girl, it had to be one of them. So
nobody's fessed up.
nobody has fessed up. No confessions just yet.
Ended up serving mission.
Did.
Tell about that. What impact did that have on you?
Do you know what? I think the thing that I love about the mission is that it was one of the greatest experiences that I've ever had. To back up just a little bit, there was a preparatory step, which is having 3 older brothers that had served missions. One was in Arcadia, California, Spanish speaking. The next one was in Mexico City, and then the other one was in Fort Lauderdale, and all Spanish speaking. And so when I got my call to go to Santiago, Chile North Mission, it was just a part of the process. And I think what was interesting is that I was heavily involved in skiing and doing things at Deer Valley, and had an opportunity to replace somebody over in Maui, Hawaii. And so living there for a year, I was a youth counselor and drove truck because I actually had a CDL and had driven large semis on the farm and doing things with the potatoes and grain and barley and things. And so in a position where I could actually go over there and serve in that, kind of take his place. He got really, really sick. I took his place, but I was exposed to the Hawaiian culture, to the Tongan culture, to really just those things. And it was preparatory because as I went on my mission, little did I know that my second mission president would actually be the very first Hawaiian called mission president, Holbrook DuPont, and his wife, dear wife, Amanda. And so it was preparatory. As an assistant to the president, I was in a position that for 6 months I could help him transition and be in a position to do that. And I saw the hand of the Lord in that. It was just an amazing experience. So, yeah, there's a lot of missionaries out there that I still stay in contact with. We were there, and you probably heard about it. At the time, that every one of our chapels and stake centers actually had incendiary devices let off on them, and so that was a big thing. They did not realize that they were actually hurting their own citizens, and so as they would come in and get everybody outside of the church and outside the oreja, the gate, and then they would let the pipe bomb off, and then they would throw the flyers and say, this is what happens to people that associate with American, Americans, and so yeah, it was at the time it was a very different mission. I was on the phone with Richard Britzing of Church Security on a regular basis because we had events happening all the time where we needed to be able to always be ready to go and evacuate or be in a position that we could actually help a missionary or get out of a bad situation. And so, wow. Yeah, all of those things were all part and parcel of kind of what, brought it together. But then there was the highlights of the immense success that all of us had. We had the best of the best. We had some of the most incredible missionaries that were meant to be there. I mean, genuinely, when they got that calling, I have every confidence that they were supposed to be there because, they were the best. We had President Eyring, Elder Eyring's, his son was there, Matthew Eyring, and, we've had Joel Sabrowski. I mean, these are names, but just stalwart missionaries, and we had the best sister missionaries, and we were by region, we were the smallest mission, but we had the greatest population, and just a marvelous experience. And then having a mission president that understood kind of my desire to actually be in a position to give back. I saw tons of kids that needed cleft palate and cleft lip repairs, And I asked him, I said, if I could arrange it, would you be okay if I actually brought Operation Smile and doctors from Salt Lake that had worked on me and kind of done some things? And so we were able to coordinate that. And we ended up having an opportunity to impact almost 500 families with kids that actually had cleft lip and cleft palate, and able to scrub in on those and be a part of that operations and different things. So very, very unique opportunity and mission. And then at the very end of my mission, we had to get a military escort back to the airport because that is when the war broke out. And so there was a lot of things going on, just a lot of movement. So,
Wow.
yeah.
Very intense experience.
It was an intense experience. My I guess patriotism for this country is so strong, and so it's interesting because when you're in that moment, you're always on guard. And I just remember when the pilot came on and just said, welcome to the United States. Like we're now entering, these airways, and we're now going to be landing, and so welcome home. And it just resonated with me, and I just remember that. At that point, you kind of felt like you could let go, or like not be looking around and head on a swivel and kind of doing everything the church had advised us. I found humor in the fact that, most of us are 6 feet taller and larger, and the Chilean people are not. And so when we wore plain clothes, it was like they already know who we are. This is a given. Like it's not just wearing plain clothes. But.
Yeah. I want to ask you about you had a son, Jonathan, and you're telling me a little bit about that, how his life has inspired you to get involved with your volunteers. And
yeah, so I think with, so he goes by Austin, and his birth date was October the 1st. He would have been 31 years old, and he passed away about 7 years ago, but he was severely autistic and nonverbal, and but just the most incredible light, and just had a genuine mission here on earth. I truly believe that. I think that's one of the dynamics of his life, and his mission was to bring light. And that's what got me heavily involved with volunteering for the Johnson County Development Services and impacting governmental type things as far as change. And then being into horses and ranching and all those kind of things, it opened up the opportunity to create several therapeutic riding schools, and that kind of extended into military and PTSD, and then it got into first responders, and that then grew into an NGO that we call Ranch Aid, and so we're in a position that we can actually go out and affect change and kind of be the light, where we can be in a position where everything about that is giving back and just helping people. I think that's one of the elements that when you start looking at Austin's life, he was the why. He was the one that really kind of just was so amazing and so incredible, and just in a position to always light up a room. And as we traveled together, it was really important that he was always with me and kind of doing things, but fully integrated into the school system. And we had just an overflow, standing room only, funeral and everything for him. He had a undetected heart defect that we were not aware of, and went in on a Friday and passed away the following Friday. But it was a beautiful experience. It was right around the same time where we're at right now is kind of when we were going through that 7 years ago, and very, very difficult, but it was such a beautiful way that everything happened with his passing and with kind of everything. And while it was traumatic, there was just such a peace and a calm that was about it. And when you give him a blessing and you just say, this is you've done well. So.
Well, it sounds like a really powerful experience. Very heart-wrenching, but powerful.
Well, it is, and I'm sorry I'm getting so emotional, but I think I just marvel at the impact, because my then wife Angela, we we said, why are we even doing this? He's out of school, he's graduated, he's not really, who's going to even show up to this? This was just such a sudden thing and certainly not planned on or anything. And to all of a sudden have all of these kids just show up and going through and just offering, their sympathies and everything. And, you can imagine a stake center just being completely full. And we have no idea how they found out about it. We have no idea, but everything about it was just powerful because it happened to be the day off of school. So all these kids couldn't ride a bus. They actually drove themselves to the stake center, and they were part of a choir that sang the most angelic song ever. And then I had two of my really close missionary companions. They actually came and spoke. And so I think that's the part of it, that there's just moments in time when you just look back and you say, everything is preparatory, everything is happening, but look at the impact that this one special needs, child has done for so many. And to introduce the gospel and to introduce others to this light that he carried around. And so, yeah, very impactful.
Very impactful.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk a little bit more about some of those volunteer organizations you're part of, especially with, you obviously love horses. So tell me a little bit about how that helps with people maybe with special needs or therapeutic needs, and what kind of things can they get from these horses, these kind of things that you have going on.
Yeah, I think the greatest thing about therapeutic riding is that it really is about groundwork. And groundwork is really, a horse has so many senses they can pick up on what these kids or what these veterans or what these first responders, what they're going through. And so I think the most powerful part about it is that they get to have a connection with an animal who is reading them through what they're feeling and reactionary. On most cases with therapeutic riding, you have two sidewalkers, and you'll actually have the child or the individual that's riding, and you're working on core. So that's kind of how it started with my son, is you're working on the core and you're, trying to stay upright, and you're kind of, just working through things. And so it becomes a form of occupational therapy, physical therapy. That's kind of the whole genesis of it. But then what wasn't really known for a long time is the emotional and the ability to have a connection. And I think that's where, some of the greatest horse trainers and horse whisperers, they really talk about having that connection with an animal, and horses are definitely that. That's why they always have just been such a critical part of my life is you're a team, when you're out there and you're sorting cattle or you're working cattle or, cutting out cows and different things. You're a team, you're working together. In this particular case, you've got individuals that they haven't ever had that. It's this large, scary animal, and people can share that thing. They're like, I don't want to get bucked off, so I'll just stay on the ground. But I think even just having the opportunity to go in and just brush these animals, and, a horse can feel a fly land on it. And, that's the amount of senses that they've got. And so with special needs kids especially, it's just the ability to have this connection point. And it does so much good. You not only are strengthening them, it gives them purpose, it gives them direction, it kind of makes them stronger, but it gives them the ability to feel normal. And then we start introducing veterans to this, lots of PTSD and individuals dealing with suicidal thoughts and just kind of anger issues and other challenges. And so if you can take this great big animal and have this individual have this connection with them, most of them are not riding, they're actually just on the ground, and leading them around and learning to do cues and getting them to kind of do these things, but then really getting kind of that internal thought process where they really are having greater impact and kind of grounding themselves is what we call it. It's a powerful moment when somebody can release and they can let that emotion out, or they can, deal with the trauma of war and of loss and, death and like our first responders, kind of after a post-shooting situation or traumatic event, getting them in there and just working with them, just helping them realize that what they're feeling is normal and being in a position to help them move forward. So
Your love of animals has probably got what you got involved with ranch aid. And right now, when we're filming this, there've been a lot of hurricanes and tornadoes and animals right in the middle of things, and that's a big problem. How does ranch aid help that out?
Yeah, the how it all started is that there's a significant drought in Oklahoma, and this would have been back in 2017, 2018, and we had a lot of extra hay, and so we're like, you know what, let's just kind of do a little night maneuver here, and we'll load up, several semis worth of our extra hay, and we'll just take it down. We'll just donate it. Don't need anything. Just trying to stay under the radar, just give back, and that's how it started. As people started hearing about it, they're like, well, hey, can we, pay for fuel, or can we pay for this, or your meals and this and that? We're like, no, that's not what this was about at all. This was just helping other farmers and ranchers out, and that's how it started. And then we jumped into a wildfire in western Kansas, and kind of the same thing. It just snowballed, and it all of a sudden became a massive convoy of over 35 semi loads of hay taking out to ranchers that were impacted. And all of a sudden we had a problem because we had all these donations coming in, and we needed to be a nonprofit. So that's where we got busy on putting that together, the 501c3. And we then were contacted by FEMA and the USDA to go back to Washington, D.C., and we actually met there, and they just said, we would like to kind of appoint your group as our point of contact whenever there's a hurricane, a snowstorm, fires, tornadoes, you name it, we go and we respond to that. And right now with Humane Society and other things, they deal more specifically. The law is set up in such a way that cats and dogs and pets, they get taken care of under the law. So if your family is displaced, then you have to provide shelter for those pets, for those same individuals. Not so much with large animals like horses, cattle. We specialize in zoo animals as well. And so people think, oh, a disaster, a hurricane. Well, you have to help these animals evacuate. Sometimes they get stranded. They're, set up in such a way they're going to go to the high ground. And if they can't get out, then obviously there's loss. And when there's a fire, they get caught by a fence and they can't get out. And so a lot of it is just the education of when something is coming or something happens, then you want to be in a position that you can actually facilitate kind of instructing and doing things. Right now, we're dealing with 2 hurricanes back to back in Florida and Georgia and North Carolina. And so our groups and teams have all been back there supporting the rescue efforts as far as actually helping individuals save their animals and get hay into them. At one point, I was involved in a helicopter company, and so I've got a lot of experience as far as actually being able to go and take that kind of that preparatory thing where, hey, I can use this exact same skill set to help do hay drops. And so when the Indian reservation calls, they will actually call, Secretary of State will call and say, we want to be in a position where we can actually facilitate helping these individuals. They're a sovereign nation, can't do anything, but they've made a request of us. Can you actually help us out? So we'll come in there and we'll do an airdrop, or we'll do different things. And so this is a challenge all over the world. And I'm very, very blessed to be a part of a group that comes in. And, I think probably one of the most impactful things as a member of the church is to get with these good folks who are just really don't have hope. They've lost hope. Maybe they've lost their whole operation. They've got lost. They've maybe lost family. They don't have a house anymore. They just don't know what to do, how to do it. And, to just be in a position to come in and just express the true love of Christ, that, yeah, we may not understand exactly why this happened and why your family was impacted or how you're going to recover, but the Lord knows you. God sees you. Everybody is aware of who you are, and we're here to bring light. And what can we do? And most times it really just kind of becomes a very simple thing is, could you just pray with us? And being able to offer a prayer or to be in a position to just love in them and minister to them on a heart-to-heart basis and just spirit to spirit, has got to be the most rewarding of anything that happens. When you just know that they're going to be okay, but in that moment, they just need to have a hug, or they just need to hear that it's going to be okay. And I think that part of the joy that our group gets is that when you can go in there and, there's obviously all of the things that need to get taken care of, but we find that the best way to help them the most is really just praying with them and loving on them and squeezing on their neck, and just being in a position to really emulate love and light, and so that's the side effect. That's the real value to that whole situation.
Jonathan, it's been a pleasure to talk with you, Jonathan Cutler. So many things you're involved in. I won't even try to list them all, but amazing things you've been involved in. And so thank you so much for taking the time to come and chat
Absolutely.
today.
My
Thanks,
pleasure.
Jonathan.
Thank you. Okay.